In this video, we're going to be going over how to composite your renders together inside of Photoshop. And some of you might already know all these techniques. I'm just going to kind of go over some stuff to make it a little bit easy if you've never done this before. So the first thing would be for the assignment turn-in, your render is supposed to be that 3840 by 2160. So we rendered our images out at that resolution. So I already know that this canvas size is correct. So technically I could have rendered this out as a big square image of, I don't know, 5,000 by 5,000 pixels. The thing that I would want to avoid though would be, let's go ahead and duplicate it, turn this one off, is I'd want to avoid rendering it out too small. So if I rendered it out at that 1280 by 720, it would be about that big, and I'd throw this little 720 image on this 4K canvas and it would just be tiny. And the last thing that I want to do, we'll make this a little more extreme so you can tell, is the last thing you want to do when you're dealing with images is you don't want to take images and make them larger. You always want to get an image that's larger than you need and then make it smaller. The reason behind that is if we increase the size of this image back to where it was, you can see it's really blurry and pixelated. These aren't straight lines. So conversely, if I turn this one on, you can just see how crisp and nice this looks. This is what we're shooting for. This is 100% what we want to avoid. Again, we want to make these look as professional as possible. So we have our chessboard. Then I have this other render that I use. I'm not sure if I'm going to crop it yet. It's just a different angle of things. Because again, see how big it is? From this one, we can't really see the detail in the chess pieces. We just more see a chess board. And I could zoom in and be like, oh yeah, that's a nice pawn. But realistically, having something a little bit bigger would be potentially better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to organize these in a fashion that they kind of look presentable. Because again, something like this is just too cluttered. So again, this one I'll probably shrink down. This one I'll probably keep at that maximum size. It'll just be where do I want to kind of position things. So let's go ahead and shrink this down. Let's just turn this layer off so it's not in the way. And I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and crop this about right here. Just get rid of these pixels. And again, I could do this with masks and make it non-destructive, but I'm not super worried about it. So let's actually go back to where we resized this. That was right here. So I'm going to go ahead and crop this at the larger size, just so I have kind of that maximum resolution to work with. Let's actually have the corner of that board. Something like that. And let's just kind of work with this. So again, this image, I could have blurred the edges, did something a little bit fancier with the selection set. So let's actually go ahead and just because I was right there, just do that. So again, if I was to delete this, it's just crisp edges. Let's do a select, modify, feather, and pixels with the ruler we can see up here. We'll do probably a feather of, let's do 20. And delete that. Now this looks a little bit, potentially a little bit better, we'll see. So I have this, I'm probably going to have this over to the left side. And this one's over here. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's throw it up in this corner. It seems like it would fit up there. So again, I don't know how small I'm going to make it, so I don't want to make it too small at first. And the other thing, just normal composition stuff, I don't want this to get too close to the edge like this, or really close like this, or just a little bit over. If you're going to make it over, like commit and make it fully over so it looks intentional. But again, normally you just want to have those safe borders. So let's turn this off. So negative space, we have the most negative space up here, and then we have a little bit of negative space right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of position these up here, but another thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip this image. So again, all these pieces, the chess pieces are symmetrical, so it's not a big deal. And it kind of goes brown pieces, white pieces, and then brown pieces again. But I'm just going to pretend like this camera angle instead of it being the camera right here facing this way, I'm going to say that the camera was over here facing this way. And again, the kind of bad thing is it's going to flip the king and the queen. We'll just hope that whoever's looking at this doesn't really notice. It's not a big deal. So, oops. We don't want to flip canvas. So edit, transform, flip horizontal, boop. Now it's over here. So again, king and the queen are flipped. It's not really a big deal. I mean, if you're playing chess, it's a big deal, but we'll go with it. So something like that, have it go all the way over to the edge. Actually, if you notice, we actually didn't feather it right here, so that's not really the end of the world. You can grab this little portion, select, modify, do that same feather. And delete it. And we'll just have it hug the edge. There we go. That should work just fine. So now we kind of have some negative space going on right here. Other thing at this point, if I wanted to, I could twist this board around and make it work. Again, you can kind of organize this stuff however you want. Again, just try to make it look as good as possible. So again, the other thing is right now we don't have a background at all. So let's, oops, not make a folder. Let's make a new layer. So let's go ahead and start naming these. Chessboard. Beauty shot of the extra pieces, and we'll just name this background. So now, choosing a background color, this can get a little bit tricky. A lot of times people just go to like a crazy primary color like this, throw that on there and call it good. Realistically, this red is kind of burning your face. It's really, really intense. It's kind of almost distracting from the pieces on here. So we want something that kind of just mellows this out a little bit. So let's just take that same red. I mean, we're probably not going to stick with red. We'll just take that same red, desaturate it, and fill it. And you can see that's already starting to look better. So again, normally backgrounds, it's a background. You don't want it to be the star of the show. So again, even something like this looks a little bit better. So again, let's just take one of our tones in here, one of these browns potentially. Make it a little bit darker, a little bit more desaturated. So actually something like this is starting to look good. It complements what we have going on. Other thing, if we wanted to, we could do some type of lasso selection and have this either match or split the difference between these angles. Do another one of those feathers. Delete this out. Again, we can really do anything we want with this. I'll just leave it there for now though. But regardless, we just kind of want to show off our pieces in their best light. Something like that. And then in this empty space, what we can actually do is add a little text box. And we kind of have a larger font, so let's drop that down. So I'm going to do, I'll probably adjust this a little bit. Just going to put my name. Actually, let's do something like this. Actually, I don't even have to put by. And then lastly, let's go ahead put contact information. So again, this kind of serves a purpose for that center. We'll do that. There we go. Then maybe even drop that opacity, or change the font to black, drop the opacity. Again, you can kind of do whatever you want with this. So, kind of the meaning behind this chessboard, really not needed. People look at it, they know it's a chessboard. So, at a bare minimum, what I would recommend you do is put your name and contact information. And the reason I say this is just get in the habit of doing this for your presentation renders, because this is something that you're potentially going to put on a portfolio. Again, this is your first big project in 3D. It's probably not the best thing in the world, but you could definitely be proud of it. But regardless, just getting in that habit of doing that, because the reason behind doing this is you're going to throw this stuff up online. It'll pop up on Instagram and Facebook and every other social media thing under the sun. But if somebody sees it and they want one created for themselves, they could contact you. They have your name, they have your email. They could be like, hey, so-and-so, I would like you to make this for me. And you could get freelance work that way. I've had students in the past that they directly got work that way. They contacted them through the email that was listed on their render, and they got work because of it. So again, it's just one of those best practices. It doesn't really hurt anything. And the other thing, if you don't want your name and your personal email out there, you could just have kind of a dummy email that you could put on there that you just check every once in a while, and it might be full of spam, whatever, but it would just be somebody could contact you and you could potentially get work from it. So from here, this render is pretty much all set. What you're going to want to do is do a file save as, and again, you can just call this, again, you'd want to name it according to the project. Chess render 01. And actually, I'm just going to save it as a PSD. Hit save, hit OK. And then I'm actually going to save it again as a PNG. So one's flattened, one's not flattened. And the reason behind that is if I ever need to come in here and I realize, oh no, I spelled my name wrong, I can just come in here, jump in there, edit the text, and then resave it back out. And the reason I'm saving the flattened image out is if I need to upload it to Instagram or ArtStation or whatever, I just have that flattened image that's a little bit smaller. So from here, what I want you to do is grab that PNG, grab that PSD, upload them to Google Drive, and then actually do a file save as and save out your 3D file as an FBX and upload that as well. And then you'll be all set for this assignment.